one shot at a time.
Welcome back to the Enjoy the Walk podcast, guys. I already feel the gloves coming off on this one, and we're just going to hop right into it. As many of you may have heard, the USGA came out with their USGA and RNA came out with their Distance Insights Project write-up for 2020. They came out with that on Tuesday, February 4th, and a headlining quote that was taken from both finding parties is that distance is a detrimental part of golf's future and is playing a detrimental part in the progress in the game. Guys, it's time to weigh in. Gloves off. Let's go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, detrimental part to the 99% are going to see negative benefits if this goes through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Right off the bat, Isaiah, let's get your opinion on it. As you're chasing professional golf and in the ranks of seeing those guys in the Korn Ferry Tour this year, I mean, you know, we've talked about it from our perspective of there's less than 1% truly hitting the ball far enough for these courses to be at the 7,500 plus level. And I mean, you saw it in your experiences this summer. I'd like you to touch on it. What do you see distance-wise out there in these Korn Ferry Tour qualifying events?
Look, I mean, you do see the anomalies on tour like Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka. And even Rory McIlroy, as short as he is from a stature standpoint, there's very few guys that are actually hitting the ball the numbers that the PGA Tour is claiming that they hit them. And if they are hitting it that far, you know, 330s, 340s, it's due to, you know, say the loft of their driver or the shaft that's in it or the way that they're hitting the ball, a little more draw or a little more fade, whatever suits their spin rate numbers. But the fairways, keep in mind, are typically very firm. And there's a premium placed on being able to hit it accurately. Once you hit it into the fairway, you're going to get 30 to 50 yards a roll, depending on how high you hit it. But even with the Korn Ferry Tour, I mean, there's guys typically hitting it anywhere from 275 to, you know, 320 yards. I mean, in one of the events I played, I averaged 337 for the week. So I was poking it a long way, but no means is that carry yardage.
Well, now where was that tour event at, though? Because altitude, and people forget that, like, a lot of these tour events are at higher altitude as well. So these balls are going to carry 30, 40 plus yards farther than normal. So where was that event at that you were averaging 337?
It was actually up in New York. Now, mind you, they didn't have a TrackMan set up on every hole. So they took stats off of maybe 2 or 3 holes. So for that day, if a guy got there and it was a little bit downwind and say it was a little right to left, a righty might get up on that hole and hit a nice high draw like Michael DeMorat does, and they'll send that ball well over 350 yards with how firm it is. But we did have a couple days of rain where the fairway softened up and the course did play harder, and it was no more than 7,300 yards. So with that being said, I mean, we were only playing it, I think, 850 feet of elevation on top of the mountain, which isn't much, but it's, you know, 1.5% to 2% increase in distance. So you're seeing anywhere from 5 to 10 extra yards off the tee, and then, you know, 3 to 5 with your irons, maybe. So it's not that big of a jump, but what you see out there, the guys hitting it so far, they're just using their bodies. It's not so much the technology, it's their bodies.
Yeah, I mean, I want to take some time to look at the top driving distance chart here from the PGA Tour. Now, this is updated as of last week for all of 2019. Your driving leaders, there was only 55 guys on the PGA Tour that averaged over 300 yards for an entire season. Now, right there off the bat, you're talking about the 1% of the 1%. These guys on tour are already the 1% that makes up everyone who plays golf, whether it's recreationally, for professionals. But for 2019, your leader at 317, so only 317 yards. People talk about these guys hitting monstrous close to 400-yard drives. It's just not happening consistently on the tour. It's not. Cameron Champ led at 317. And then obviously we talk about a notorious bomber. He's hit the ball long since he was 5 years old. Rory McIlroy sitting there at number 2. I mean, he's 5'8". But the guy is a gym rat. And I think that's something else we want to get into is these guys that are out there now are just downright athletes. Hell, Brooks Koepka in 2019 sitting at 10. I mean,
Mm.
there's 10 guys above him. I mean, you look at the likes of Bubba Watson and Wyndham Clark, both really, really tall, lanky guys. Luke List, big hitter from down south, and then you're looking at Dustin Johnson at 4. I mean, your top 10 are the notorious guys out there that are bombing it. But they're not – I mean, yes, Brooks Koepka went on a run and did some damage in the majors, but how many times was he winning a typical tour event that he entered? He was contending, but he wasn't blowing people away enough to a point to say, all right, this distance is really a problem. None of these guys in the top 10 were. These guys in the top 10 of distance weren't just racking up tour wins because they could blast it by everybody else. And I think that's something that the USGA just either didn't look at or didn't think about when they made the comments that distance is detrimental to the game.
Dante, what do you think?
Man, going back, I mean, just going back, if the guys that are averaging over 300 yards, they should be winning every tournament if it's that much of an advantage. Yet, who just won the Phoenix Open? He's not the longest hitter. You know, I mean, just look at that. I mean,
Mr. 160th on distance.
And they were in a higher altitude. Ball flies further. State, Arizona, the ball flies much further. I mean, we even played with the guy when we were down in Florida who's from Utah and says, wow, the ball is not traveling as far as I'm used to. I mean, what's that just say? These guys are in the gym. They are training. They are athletes. This game is not it's not a leisure game anymore. It's a sport. These guys are putting blood, sweat, and tears into their training. They are doing data analysis of every little possible part of their body to figure out what am I going to focus on in the gym that's going to generate more speed in my swing.
I think a perfect example of that is Bryson DeChambeau this year. Dante, you brought it up earlier. He didn't hit the ball as far as he wanted to last year. What did he do? Spent the entire winter bulking up 20-plus pounds. Now he hits the ball 30 yards farther. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to go dominate, but he got in the gym, got it done. This is a sport now. They're pure athletes playing the game in this decade.
Yeah, and he bulked up. Granted, I mean, I don't think you need to really bulk up, but what he did, I mean, he knows he is so fine-tuned into his body and what he needs to do to get done. He's so down to the minute number. He's out there and he's grinding to figure out what he needs to do to generate that speed. And I even saw an article earlier, or someone posted something earlier today. I think they said he averaged 302 off the tee last year. And he said, I need to get longer. How do I get longer? Or what did he do to get longer? He went to the gym. I mean, plain and simple. Look at Scott Stallings. This guy, you can watch videos, you can read articles on him. He told the viewers that at one point he was almost at his lowest point with his health. Doctors are telling him you better do something in order to get fit or turn yourself around because you're in a bad place right now. You know what he did? He turned his diet around. He started going to the gym. He lost all this weight. The guy's a machine. I bet you he's averaging way more speed now. The guy hits the ball a mile. So you're going to tell me that a ball is the deciding factor on distance?
Yeah, the technology is not the problem. And Dante, to piggyback off of your Scott Stallings, perfect example. I'm looking at a piece here put out by the PGA Tour back in May of 2019. They put out a picture. Scott Stallings was 240 pounds. He was 28% body fat. Now he dropped 55 pounds. He's down to 16% body fat and said he picked up over 13 miles per hour club head speed just in the weight loss drop alone.
Numbers
guys are working their ass off. I mean, it's hilarious to think that. I mean, granted, the USGA and the RNA has done their due diligence, and I'm not going to shade them on that. They've looked at numbers over the past 100 years of the sport as a whole, and they've taken into consideration everything, or at least they thought they did. I don't think they've truly considered everything, but that's a conversation for maybe 10 minutes from now. But what I want to get into is some comparisons in other sports over the past 100 years. And what they've done to transform and how people are actually taking those sports and pushing them forward because of these transformations. You look at the 100-meter dash. what was it 100 years ago? People weren't breaking the 10-second mark in the 100-meter dash. Now you look at the likes of Usain Bolt, and your world record back in 1912 was 10.6 for the 100-meter dash. Now you have guys like Usain Bolt running it in 9.5. I mean, that's almost a full second off of a 100-meter dash. And it's just credit to not only the technology that's being put in these guys, but just the hard work of these athletes, some athletes that may have never thought about getting into the sport like golf and that are now choosing maybe baseball or basketball or other, higher profile sports and getting into the game of golf. It speaks to just every sport is progressing. I don't know why the talking heads of golf refuse to let that keep moving forward like every other sport is out there. And I think that's what's holding golf back a little bit from becoming a true worldwide sport, is just these governing bodies keep kind of pulling us back from really letting the game expand.
I mean, everything's just the typical saying, bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, people are diving into analytics. Look at the NFL. Look at the way, these teams are analyzing their players and who are they going to, and how the game's changing. And they're not going back and saying, well, it used to be this and it used to be that. It's all right. Things are changing. How are we going to adapt, and how are we going to succeed in the future to set up growth, better players, better teams, better, you name it, to find a success in their sport. I mean, I can go back to lacrosse back in the high school and even the college days, and even the way it's now. It's a totally different game than what I played, because things were changing. People were getting faster. The rules were changing, and they adapted to that. Why does it have to be a halt on golf? Why does it always have to be to the fact, well, we want to keep the game how it was intended to be? The game's still intended to be in what it's
the minute that conversation stopped for me, looking back on golf technology, is when we switched from wooden heads to steel driving heads. If the USGA truly wanted this game to be what it was and to be authentic, it stops there. You keep it at wooden heads and you call it a day. But no,
might as well go back to hickory shafts.
Correct.
Too.
Yeah.
Correct. So when the day they made the decision to let the technology of late 90s, early 2000s progress into steel heads from the hickory shafts and from whatever it may be, they lost all conversation of this distance is detrimental. They lost all credibility at that point, because from that point on, you adapt, you move forward, and you push through. Personally, this is just a growing pain of a sport. You challenge yourself to figure out better ways to either design a course or manicure a course so that you challenge these players a little bit more. You look at, I don't know, maybe drawing back the ball a little bit, but I think that's as far as it goes. I mean, let's be honest. How much has irons really changed over the last 10 years?
Just the lofts.
Your blade irons are your blade irons. Your forged irons are your forged irons. They're making them. Your 7-iron is now probably a stock 6, what it was 5-10 years ago, just to make it look like it's flying farther. But that technology's about to its limit, I think. The true technology and what they're complaining about distance-wise is just the driver. I think that's all they're getting at. I can't see, and maybe you guys can, I can't see where else they're complaining about this distance being such a problem.
I don't know. I mean, there's a very, very popular golf course out of Florida. It's called Sawgrass Country Club. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but it's directly across the street from TPC, where we all know the Players is hosted each and every year. Well, I was speaking with a rules official, a USGA official from, I'd say he was around back in the, the 60s, the 70s, when golf was really starting to take off in the U.S. And he said he very distinctly remembered 2 players stepping up on hole number 5 out there, which is it's a dogleg right par 4 that's been lengthened to about 450-ish yards, roughly. But back in the day, there was a forced carry of 210 yards to get from tee box over this pond that was right out in front right before the fairway started to, turn off to the right, following the dog leg. Well, only 2 players could get it over that water if that hole played into the wind. Those players were Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer. They were flying it by 40 yards, playing with wooden heads, a lot of balls. They were the only 2 that were able to get it over that water. And why was that? Is because they were swinging differently than everybody else. They had a different gear, and they could access it. It was their bodies. It wasn't the technology. Everybody was playing with nerfed golf balls and nerfed drivers and, aluminum shafts, whatever it was at the time. So it's not an issue of the distance. It's the players. Jack and Arnie were machines back in the day. They were in better shape than everybody else. They were stronger than everybody else.
It's funny you bring up the Golden Bear, because it seems like Jack has been a serious advocate of this drawback of technology since the USGA really made it a point to make this the headline news that they come out with every year. For the best 5 or 6 years, they've been coming out with distance reports and teasing this kind of 100-year grand report that they just came out with yesterday. And I think it's hilarious that out of all people, the leading driving distance man during his entire era, Jack Nicklaus, is the one that's begging for distance to be pulled back. I find that insanely ironic.
Yep. And another thing we see too, just to touch base on purse sizes. I mean, you look at how much a PGA Tour pro was getting paid back in the day. They're playing with wooden heads, a lot of balls, and there was absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the average PGA Tour pro back then didn't get paid very much at all. And then you see aluminum shafts come in. You see more forged heads and square grooves and a transition to circle grooves, 3 and 5 layer balls up to the, the tailor-made sim drivers and TS3s and 2s and whatevers that we have now. And the purse sizes back then were $5,000-$6,000. You can make that on a mini tour today to a purse size of, $1.3 million. And a lot of that is due to Tiger stepping onto the scene, being an athlete, absolutely tearing golf courses apart. And not because he was playing with a different club than anyone else. He was just hitting it so much better than anybody else could imagine. There's a skill gap there.
There was a defining sound when Tiger made contact with the ball. You can look up any of his videos when he first came out on tour in the late 90s, right before he won his first Masters. And I think, we just had the Waste Management Open last week. You look at some of his, sounds and, videos from that tournament even. I think that was in 98, maybe 99 a little bit. It was during that Tiger Mania time. His striking of the golf ball just makes and still makes, but even it was more distinguished back in that day, made a much more distinguished, crushed sound when he made contact with the ball. Better than most of his, if not all of his peers at the time. And I think it just goes back to, like you said, being an athlete, and that's why we have what we have in the golf game today, because of Tiger Woods.
Yeah,
I'm not one to hop on too many people saying they single-handedly changed the sport, but I'm telling you, he was a very, very lone ranger in changing the sport of golf, and is why
you'll even have more non-golf critics, sports analysts, that will say Tiger Woods changed the game, in which he did. I mean, he brought the money into it. He crushed the ball. Do you want to go to – my friend said it pretty perfectly one time when this debate came out last year. We were sitting at the bar outside after our round. He goes, why do I want to go watch a tournament and watch some guy hit it 250? I want to watch these guys bomb the ball. He goes, because I can go out and hit it 250, no problem. Why do I want to see myself play out there? I want to go see these elite guys do something that I can't do. And that's that's a good look at it too. But again, these guys, again, we have our day jobs, we have whatever. These guys are going out. They are working 12 hours a day, 12, 15 hours a day, and they're just grinding. They're in the gym. They're working out. They're playing golf just on repeat, sun up to sundown. You're going to tell me that you alter the ball, that they're going to change something?
Well, you want to talk about altering a ball in a sport for the reason of distance? Look at the major leagues. They alter the ball for it to go farther.
Yeah.
Run still. The long ball sells. I mean, if you have to look at another organization of how to do things and see sales skyrocket when balls go further, there's no better case than the Major League Baseball. I mean,
Yep.
the long ball sells. People sit in their seats. People come to golf tournaments to watch a ball fly very far, plain and simple. At the end of the day, and I mean, we'll get into this here, in a bit, but the PGA Tour sells an experience. They sell much more than just rounds of golf.
It's a show.
It is a show. It is a business. The long ball is a very, very key part of that business. And I think if you look at it, pulling it back would actually be detrimental, if you have to use that word, to the game of golf, rather than distance being the detrimental part of this conversation.
I think it also speaks for itself. We discussed this earlier, and I know that we discussed this off camera, but let's go with infrastructure. What have they done to courses? If you want to dial things back, I mean, look at these tour players. I mean, they go to Hawaii, they go to Mexico, they go to Arizona. I mean, they're hitting balls on concrete rock. I mean, the top tracer, you have guys hitting. You'll watch it too, and the PGA does it. That pisses me off too. The long ball hitters, I'll just call them out right now. Jackasses. It pisses me off because what you'll see is someone will hit, some no name will hit a shot, right? He'll hit it. I don't know. Top tracer does carry distance. Next time you're watching the PGA event on Golf Channel or whatever, and they bring up the top tracer, watch closely. You'll see, like, John Smith hit the ball, right? 287 carry, hits, rolls out. It'll stop. That number will stop on the carry distance, 287. You get DJ, he'll hit it. He'll carry maybe 305, 310, and then it'll roll out. That number on that screen is still going, and then it shows he hit it 350. I mean, these guys are hitting shots into concrete, and the ball's rolling out 50, 60, maybe even 70 yards.
Yep.
So you're going to tell me that the ball's a problem? Get out of here. Why don't you fix the courses first? And then why don't you soften up the fairways, grow the rough a little bit? Why don't you tighten it up? Okay. They don't even think – the USGA and the RNA are not thinking outside the box. They're like, well, you know what? We got to move it back. No, you don't. Keep it the way it is. All right, if the guy's carrying it maybe 300, 310, and there's a bunker sitting 260, 270, why don't you move that bunker forward a little bit?
Yeah.
I mean – it's the same thing with
it's all about setup. It's all about setup. And I've played in qualifiers, and Isaiah's gotten very close to US Open qualifying himself. And it's all about setup. And the USGA just seems to get it wrong all the time. They try too much with the game. They try to be too fancy. They try to do way too much with the game instead of just thinking, like you just said, hey, let's make that bunker actually come into play for 90% of the field rather than just being there and everyone flying this bunker. You have a bunker at 250, 260. No one cares about that bunker. You put that bunker at 285 to like 300. Suddenly every PGA Tour gives a shit about that bunker. And it becomes, do I maybe hit 3 wood short and then challenge myself with a long iron coming in? Or do I try and sack up, try and hit it over? And if I don't, then I'm really screwed. Then I'm definitely making bogey. It's like, it's just course setup, and they always get it wrong.
And think of this. Lo, correct me if I'm wrong here, but so you got a bomber, right, who hits it that distance. You move that, you move that bunker up. Now you shorten that. Plus, they're playing rough that's maybe just not even that deep either. I mean, these guys are getting spin out of the rough and whatnot. Yeah. But you move that bunker forward a few yards to where that landing area for that long hitter, right? Now he's got to think. If he dials it back a little bit, and then a shorter hitter is like, don't bother me. I'm just going to bomb driver out there. Looks like they're probably going to be playing from the same spot into the green. Yeah. And what do pretty much every teaching professional that I've talked to, or even every golfer, always tells me, always about 100 yards and in. Yep. Always about the scoring clubs. Dial back the ball, dial back the clubs. Yeah, get out of here.
No, here's my the tech's got to stay, and it's got to keep going. It brings people in.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of, and I've seen on social media too, there's been a lot of golf purists that are out there that are saying, oh, bring back more spin to the ball or bring back the old ball that you could work it more. And I'm like, granted, I'm a Tiger fan to the day I die. And I think if you bring back a more spinny, more, ball that flies, you can control it more with a draw or more with a slice. I think Tiger wins 7 more majors before he's 45. Tiger dominated that era of golf. And I don't want to see that because the game has come so far and the ball is such a high tech piece of the golf game that I just don't want to see it. And I don't get it. Do you want the ball to go shorter to keep like old records intact? Is that the point of these old heads, is to keep old records and old scoring records intact? Like I'm not even sure where they're coming from. It's saying that distance is such a detrimental part. The only part that I can see where they're maybe coming from is on the golf infrastructure side of things, like we talked of them having to use these courses that are, or they think they have to use these courses that are 7,500 yards plus. We just had it this year at the PGA. They played Bethpage at 7,490 or something like that.
Yep.
And every single tour pro, even the long guys, were saying it was just too long for the game. It was insanely long and it was just no fun to play. Now, granted, I like seeing a good test of golf. But if Brooks Koepka doesn't get hot down the third round, I think it was, he shot 63. You're looking at an event that no one breaks like 3 under.
Yep.
That's a good test of golf. But I still think that course could have held up just as strongly, if not stronger, at like 7,000. I think they could have taken 500 yards off that course easy and not batted an eye.
Yeah. I mean, look at par 3 lengths. When you start stretching out courses to have those 220, 230 par 3s, you've completely changed, a fraction of the course right there. But even this past summer, I had the opportunity to play a course up near Paoli, PA, which is Waynesboro Country Club. And I kid you not, every par 4 had a bunker from the range of 260 to about 315. And I played with another guy in a practice round. He was a bomber. He was hitting it 20 past me. And he was so mad about the course setup, saying, this is stupid. Every par 4, there is a bunker from 260 to 315. I have nowhere to hit the ball. I hit the driver. I hit it so well. It's such a strong suit. But if I miss the fairway, I'm screwed. And instead of looking at it and saying, okay,
ding, 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 we have a winner. Yeah, if you miss the fairway, you're screwed. Welcome to the game of golf and how it actually was designed to be played. You look at all these courses like St. Andrews and Carnoustie, and you miss the fairway there, you're penalized. And that's what you're supposed – that doesn't happen in American golf. And it needs to get back to that. And I think the whole resort course boom of like the late 90s, early 2000s really sucked for golf course architecture when it comes to actually challenging you, because it was made for the high handicapper to enjoy the round of golf. And now you're starting to see PGA Tour events go to these like courses that are just not meant to be PGA Tour stops, but they're good for infrastructure because they can build mini cities around these courses and make them happen and get people in and out. So it's good for money. But
and these courses, think about it. How many courses have really changed from year to year, every year on, the aspect of where they're playing at? From my understanding, it looks like a lot of these courses, and it goes back to what you're saying, Dalton, it's a business. They're putting these courses, right? They're putting these events at these courses that are big, open, flat, not tight, not hilly or anything. Why? Ticket sales. It brings in so many people, and they can just pack so many customers, so many patrons, whatever the hell you want to call them, into that, because it's just going to drive sales. It's going to drive beer sales. It's going to drive revenue. It's going to drive everything up to make money. And at the end of the day, that's what they're really about. They're about to make money. So you dial back the ball, they're just going to have to revamp everything, and every company's just going to have to restart and start all over and just lose everything that they just made.
Well, that's what I think. And the PGA Tour kind of weighed in on this. And I think you're not going to see, even if the USGA does come down with these kind of harsh ramifications on technology, and it might only affect the U.S. Open or the U.S. Amateur or something like that. And it could be detrimental for just the USGA, because you look at the way the PGA kind of responded to this report, and they were not on board at all. these guys were saying pretty much that, like, hey, listen, the USGA, yeah, they came out with this report, but this report isn't about recreational golfers, and recreational golfers make up a high majority of golf sales. And I think that's so true. And I want to get into that a little bit of just like how far your recreational golfers hitting it, and how, like, if we really had a technological drawback, how it would really hurt your recreational golfer. So this was a study done by golf.com. Looks like somewhere around early this year, I think February, to kind of coincide with this distance review. Take a guess. How long do you think your average single handicap golfer averages off the tee?
They're barely sniffing 250.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Probably 247.
239 is your average of single handicap golfers off the tee. Now, this is just for men. This is just for men off the tee. Single handicap golfers averaging 239.
Mm-hmm.
Take it into the double digits. Your 10 to 20 handicap, right around 220 to 200, somewhere around there. There's a lot of courses out there that you can't find the fairway if you're not carrying it just over 200 yards from most men's tees.
Worthington Manor, hole 1. I mean, you can't get it over.
No, you can't. And I mean, it just kind of speaks to, I think, the absurdity of the USGA, and it's a little asinine, even, I think, to kind of say that distance is a problem when you're not taking into account a majority of your golf, input and your sales and what really drives the industry. Yeah, the PGA Tour is a great spectacle, but it doesn't drive the golf industry. The PGA Tour could be over tomorrow, and people are still going to go out on, their Thursday men's leagues or their Saturday morning skins match or whatever it may be. People are still going to go out and golf if the PGA Tour and the USGA aren't around. Like, I'm not worried about my next round of golf if the USGA just decides to, deband and call it quits for the year. I'm not worried about the USGA being a governing body over me playing around of golf.
That'd be nice. Just get out of here. They're just making too many. I swear to God. But it just seems everything that they want to change affects the recreational golfer, yet they want to change the professional game. They want to roll back the ball. They came out with the stupid leave the pin in.
No offense to our brothers over at Leave the Pin podcast, but yeah, we're not fans of Leave the Pin.
But the whole aspect of it, and even the rules and the hazards and taking majority of OB based on local rules and all this, and like you name it, all those significant rules that they switched into this past year to speed up the game. PGA Tour players are still complaining how slow it is out there. So you're going to tell me that leaving the pin in, they have the opportunity to leave the pin in, is going to speed them up? Get out of here. They're still complaining about certain pro players taking too long on the golf course. So you're going to tell me a rollback's going to change something? No, it's going to affect your everyday members going out on the weekend rounds, social rounds, playing a skins game, playing a buddies match. That's who it's affecting, yet you want to try and change the professional game. Not happening.
Not at all. I agree. And you want to talk about USGA just missing the mark on every ruling they kind of put out there? Let's talk about the anchoring ban for a second and how the USGA just muddied that one up real quick. There's still guys on tour till this day that are hovering. Please give me a break. Hovering these, belly putters or anchoring on their forearms.
Yeah.
I mean,
arm lock's okay.
Yeah, arm lock's okay.
Okay.
Your arm anchor's okay, but your chest and your belly anchor's not okay. Riddle me that, USGA. Like, come on. I mean, and then to say that, like, every other governing body, when you look out there and you talk about like the winners of your Latin America or your Southern America or even your Asian amateur events, every other event, the Masters, the British Open, gives these players full exemptions. What does the USGA give them? Sectional qualifying. Okay.
Goose eggs.
Great. You just won an entire continent's amateur, and we're just going to give you another 36 holes of grueling one-day golf to let you try and get into our championship. They miss the mark on every big ruling that they come out with, and it's just super frustrating. And I think Phil Mickelson actually came out today and riddled it perfect of why the USGA seems to miss their mark on everything. He said, we're the only professional sport in the world that's governed by a group of amateurs that don't play more than 8 times a year.
Hey, that's a really good point right there. Why should the professional athletes, the ones that are out there doing it for a living, allow those that won't ultimately be affected by the decision to make the decisions?
Yeah, I mean,
because they're mad they're not hitting it like Dustin Johnson. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
Get your ass into the gym, start stretching. How about maybe you switch from maybe that 65, 70 grams stiff or extra stiff shaft that you can't swing and maybe go down to more regular. I don't know. Figure it out.
Go talk to Andrew Milnarski. Go get fit.
He'll figure it out for you.
Our boy Andrew Milnarski over at Callaway Golf. We talked about it earlier in one of our podcasts, but it rings true. Like, go get fit, get some specs that fit your body, and maybe you'll start seeing more distance, or just get in the gym and get a little more athletic. I mean, I think that's the conversation at the end of the day. But it's like, going back to the governing body thing, it's like you're seeing more and more pros in different kind of organizations get involved in their own rules, whether you're seeing the NFLPA, the Players Association, get seriously interactive with what their rules look like and how their rules are changing and how their benefits chalk up. And I know the PGA has a little kind of behind the scenes Players Association, you could call it, I guess, but there's no real player say, I feel like, when these big rules are being made. And maybe they poll these guys once a year and say, hey, what if we change this? And maybe they get their opinions on it, but I don't see true interaction going on. There's no I hate to bring like a political term into it, but there's no bipartisanship. There's no hey, what do you guys as players think if we actually change this rule? The only time you ever see that interaction is when the media asks these players the questions, and that never gets us anywhere.
That, and also stop polling the 1%. I feel like there's this divide between amateur golf, the regular weekend hack, and the professional golfers. It's just an industry and a scene that's pretty much cut off from the rest of the world. It's governed by amateurs that don't necessarily interact with the PGA Tour players. And when a PGA Tour player like Justin Thomas or Ricky Fowler complains about something and calls it out, they immediately get chewed for it and made out to be the absolute worst thing that has ever happened to the game of golf, which is completely unfair. So I think we should start seeing more polls from the USGA directed towards the 99% of golf, and even send something out to mini tour players or Korn Ferry or PGA and release those stats to the public. See what the players themselves actually think.
Here's a great idea, USGA. Yes, you can even take it from us. I'll let you have this one. Make it like a census. When I get my USGA little membership card in the mail every year for being a nice donating member of the USGA, send me a nice little census, little poll just to fill out, Scantron test, whatever you have it may be. Let me answer some questions on what I think you're going to change in the game of golf. Leave me a note section, maybe get my opinion on what I think should be changed in the game of golf. Let your players and the people that actually pay your dues and the people that make your jobs possible, let us decide some things. I think that's a great way to go about it, and would actually probably change a lot of the way that golf's being played right now.
And you know what I don't get about that? The USGA, they have the United States Open, right? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? They want to make it the hardest test in golf. And what do? They alter the course. They speed the greens up. They grow the rough ridiculous. They shorten they tighten the fairways. They make it a challenge. They make these players want to think. They go out and do that. Players complain. Oh, this is too hard. This isn't golf. This is ridiculous. Because they want to see, they don't say it, but we all know they want to see who can win at level par. They go out, they make these changes, they make the course very difficult. Players struggle. Some strive. Brooks did it, won. No big deal. He's like, whatever. I adapted. I adapted to, what was handed in front of me rather than complain. Wins, goes out. Following year, they lighten up a little bit, and people are blowing their course out of the water.
Yeah.
They're going low. So what's that say?
Well, here's the thing too, and I think when they make courses like that are so deathly hard and deathly long, you want to talk about, like, I mean, this might be the only point where I see distance being a detrimental part, and it's not from a technological side of things. It's from them legitimately just making the courses too damn long. You take half the field, you take half a set of players out of the field because you've got guys that are still hitting at 270, 275. They're some of the best ball strikers in the world, don't have a chance that week. I guarantee you, you lose 500 yards off a golf course, those guys now have a chance, and you're not going to get those bombers shooting 20-some under par if you set up the course just as tight and rough as long as you would have on a 7,500-yard course. So I think the detrimental part is actually the USGA and some of these governing bodies, the way they set up the course in the first place, like we talked about earlier. It's just crazy. And, you know, Isaiah, to kind of get back to what you were saying a little bit of the game being kind of two different spectrums from, you know, professional golf to amateur golf, Matt Janella tweeted out a really neat fact today, which I thought was just special in light of kind of this conversation. He said, you know, believe it or not, 96.2% of golf being played is not at any professional level.
The vast majority is your regular weekend guys, amateur golf, collegiate golf, just everybody that you don't see playing on the PGA Tour. So to keep drawing in revenue, to keep building those purses to $1.3 million or 1.5, whatever it is, or just to draw in these crowds, to bring in the infrastructure and to boost the economy in these areas, to build these cities almost overnight, so to speak. I think you've got to take into consideration more of what the regular golfer wants to see. And also at the same time, don't be trying to take out your, you know, obsession with keeping things true to the roots of the game. Don't take out that obsession on the pros at the same time. It's just, there hasn't been enough communication between the general public and with the players themselves. And I think more people would rather go to the Waste Management Open than go see a PGA Tour event down in Florida or Missouri or wherever. You know, I think it's got to be more of a stadium sport.
It
Let
is.
people get a little rowdy,
and
see
like we
bombs,
talked about,
make long putts.
Oh, Phil Mickelson, I want to see that man continue to hit bombs for as long as he possibly can. That is what's best for the game, and we'll get back into a little bit of the way PGA Tour reacted to this. They said the PGA Tour will continue with the USGA and the R&A to monitor these trends, but as we see the game today, it is more exciting than ever for our fans, and the integrity of the game and the competitors remain intact as we continue to see diverse sets of winners on the PGA Tour year in and year out. So our examination of the data reveals that skills involved with a PGA Tour event remains largely unchanged and continues to be skills from tee to green and not just distance.
I agree.
The PGA Tour is not going anywhere, and neither is distance, because they're not going to, you know, be held back by these findings by the USGA.
I mean, we've said it before. Golf, and in my opinion, I think it's in one of the best places it can be right now. So many people are getting golf. It's becoming very innovative. You're finding other ways for people to get into the game, whether or not they're actually going out for a 9-hole round or 18 holes, or actually playing on you know, actual grass golf course. I mean, you got simulator golf, you got top golf, you name it. There are so many people that are getting into the game of golf, and and golf's hard enough as it is. It's very difficult. Every time I play, I want to quit one way. At one point during the round, I want to quit. Dalton can attest for that one.
I was going to say, you know, not to just jump on the bandwagon if you want to quit, but like, it's largely dubbed one of the toughest sports to pick up and to get good at. So why in a million years are we just going to say, you know what, technology's come a long way and it's making it really easy for people to pick it up, and all of a sudden when we're finally getting to that point where people are picking it up and it's easier to pick up now than ever, we're just going to say, dial it back, I don't like it. Like, that just doesn't do well for a global game. If you want this game to continue to reach, we literally for the first time in 80 some years, just saw golf in the Olympics the last time around. And we're about to see it come up again in 2020.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why would we want to stop that momentum?
That and the
They're
impact
just-
is going to have one on club fitters, club manufacturers. When people go to the store and they're looking to get a new driver because they say, I'm playing something from back in the 50s or the 60s. They just came out with the steel heads. If I hit this thing good, I might get 245 out of it. I want to get fit for something that's going to really help me to take my game to a different level by using distance. So they get a proper shaft, they get the right grip, they get the proper head weight, everything's dialed in for them, and boom, they pick up 40 yards and they're stoked about it. And each and every year, that technology gets a little bit more fine-tuned, and it draws people into the stores to go get fit for those clubs, to go hit the latest and greatest, because there are minor changes made each and every year and even every month with, you know, the R&D and marketing teams. So why would we want to even toss that out the window? There's so many people that work at building clubs. There's tour fitters. There's, you know, fitters at your local Edwin Watts or Second Swing, what have you. You know, that's a whole different part of the industry in and of itself. So why would we want to put a nerf on all these clubs? And people say, okay, well, you know, no matter how hard I hit this, it's only going to stop at 240. That sucks. You know, I want to be able to hit it 260 through lessons and working out and getting that new technology in my hands.
I mean, it is. And Dante, I would love for you to share with us the number that you came to find in your little, 10-minute calculations of how many people out there truly hit it far enough to consider it maybe a distance problem versus the masses. That number that you gave to us a little bit earlier before we came on the podcast is truly mind-numbingly small when it comes to how many people hit the ball far enough to consider what the USGA considers a distance problem. Dante, share that number with us.
Okay, so here are the facts, and here's what I researched. I just did a couple Google searches. I pulled up who's averaging at over 300 yards, and the report I pulled up was basically current as a 2020 season. Out of the tour players out there, there are 85 players currently that average 300 or more yards off the tee. And some of these guys have 30 events, some of them have 11 events. So, that's such a small number out of just tour players alone that are averaging 300-plus yards. I did another Google search about how many people in the world actually play golf. Actual 18-hole round golf. This isn't even sim golf or anything that's I guess you can say golf-related. 24.2 million people out there play the game of golf. So if you were to take just those two numbers, you are getting a percentage of 0.0000351. Basically 0%. You're going to tell me you want to change the ball for 0%? Get out of here.
It's incredible. It's seriously incredible. And, to kind of add on that, TrackMan also released a kind of stat that they've seen. So every TrackMan that's used uploads into the TrackMan cloud. So TrackMan's constantly being added to as far as stats, whether it's your local club fitter, your Second Swings that have all your TrackMan information. And I thought it was a pretty neat little chart in which, I'll put in the bottom right-hand corner on our YouTube viewers to kind of check out. But it shows your average club speed for your male golfer. And it kind of arcs right about 91 to 95 is like your top 22%. And then above 95 from 101 to 105, it's got 15%. From 106 to 110 is 6%. And 111 to plus is at 0%. Doesn't even register. And it kind of just makes the little facts that we just checked even truer, that there is basically non-registering amounts of people in the golf game right now that have a club speed even fast enough to make distance a problem.
And even if you throw long drivers in there, it still doesn't
0%.
bump the figure up. It's still a negligible percentage.
Yeah, because let's be honest. What is it, 20-some guys that are on that long drive, like tour? Maybe a little more than that. I mean, swap some in and out every now and then, but average of 20 guys. I mean,
So-
Dante, we talked to the Jesus of golf when we were down in Orlando, and he's been talking to us kind of before even this, process came out about distance and how fun it is to watch the ball, travel this far, not only in their long drive events, but on tour events and, the mini tours and this, that, and the other thing. Like it's going at a perfect distance right now. And like, even if we add maybe 20 yards over the next, 20 years? Because I'm looking at a stat line from the PGA Tour from 2000 and 2000. I'm looking at it from 2000. Guess who was your long drive leader in 2000?
Woods.
It was John Daly, followed closely by Tiger Woods. John Daly was the only person over 300 yards in the year 2000. That average.
So check this out. So you can even go in TrackMan, right? Like going back to the data, they have, I forget what year this is, but it's pretty relevant and pretty new. They have PGA Tour averages. Driver carry distance is 275.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What Jack and Arnie averaged about 270 back in their day?
So let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say they do draw the technology back and they do draw the ball back. These guys are still going to find out how to hit the ball over 300 yards. Mm-hmm. Brooks Koepka is not swinging anything that's not going to make a ball go less than 295. He is a beast. I mean, that's just like, even if you do draw this back, what's it going to help? I don't see this helping the game in any way, shape, or form. And
it's going to hurt everyone.
It's going to hurt absolutely everybody.
Because the guys on tour that were already not averaging, 300 yards, they're about to lose 20 or 30 yards. So the courses get even harder for them, and those long hitters still have the advantage. So what are you going to do? Nerf the clubs of that less than 1% that are able to hit it much further than you because it's not fair for the rest of them? When did the USGA become so liberal? I don't understand.
And
it's just it's a shame, but it's like a show of our times, man. It's just like it seems like, and I don't think that this is happening, but it almost seems like, the lower folks on the tour who can't hit it that far are just complaining or, behind the scenes bitching even to the governing bodies saying that like, hey, I can't hit it this far, do something about it. And it's like, get better. I don't know what else to say, but just get better. I mean, I understand that.
Get faster.
I don't understand how, I understand the golf game used to not have everyone in the gym and now it does. But all right, if you want to be a professional athlete, you got to work a little. And it seems like there's a lot of guys that just got stuck in I'm going to go play golf like the 80s and 90s, like my dad did. I mean, it's not the same game.
You can't just roll out of a car anymore and chug a beer, almost as like badass as that is, and walk to the first tee and then just rip one right down the middle and expect to win.
Yeah,
it's almost like the Mamba mentality. You got to practice harder than when you actually play in the game.
Yep. You have to look at scenarios that put you in the most immense pressure possible so that when you walk in between those ropes in the stadium atmosphere, I mean, you look at guys every guy that I heard in an interview this past week from the Waste Management said that they are a better player now because of all 4 days that they got to experience walking in that, stadium that is the 16th. I mean, when you put yourself in positions like that, you get better. And I think there's a lot of people in the game that even talk openly about shying away from even wanting to play in the Waste Management because of the atmosphere. And I think the stigma of old man golf strikes again when people talk about that, because yes, the Waste Management doesn't need to happen every week. It doesn't need to be a sloppy drunk fest every week. I even agree with that.
That'll just take away from the Waste Management of what it is for.
Exactly. But do I think the game of golf as a whole can learn from what the Waste Management's capitalizing on? Hell yeah. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and as there always will be within any sport, but especially golf right now, to modernize itself and to bring it into the 21st century like we all wish it would from a governing body standpoint. And just the USGA and R&A continue to say, well, did Tom Morris do this back in Scotland in 1755? Well, if not, we should probably change the rules. Like, that's not going to help anybody in today's day and age.
Mm. You know,
You just literally just have to get better. And
Yep.
and one way to get better is off the course.
Mm.
I mean, Logan and I talk about it all the time. You know, we're talking about other, you know, different types of people to look at for flexibility things and looking at different exercises to do to where are they going to focus? They're going to focus in the muscles that are within the swing, the ones that activate the swing. So we're going to look at our glutes. We're going to look at our legs. We're going to look at the force we're putting into the ground. We're going to look at her back. We're going to look at her spine. We're going to look at her core. Those are the things. It's not the meathead gym to go in and just, you know, I want bigger biceps and bigger pecs. We're going to go focus in on what's needed to get ourselves in a better position.
Yeah.
Let's change the conversation maybe a little bit onto the course side of things, because I think that's one thing we touched on a little bit, but I'd love to get back into, because I'm looking here, I'm kind of just reading through to make sure we didn't skip any topic that maybe, you know, hey, the USGA made a good point or something like that. But let's get into one of the statements they made is the USGA found that many amateur players are playing from a set of tees that are far too long from them. And they said, which averages at a point of 5,300 to 6,200 yards. And they're considering that still too long for amateur golfers. So if they're considering 52 to 6,300 too long for amateur golfers, why do they all of a sudden think that, you know, 7,500 is the acceptable amount for these professional golfers? And I guess where I'd like to see maybe our conversation go is, let's talk about, you know, the short courses in the USGA's past and how they've really held up, actually better than like your longer Chambers Bay or your, let's say, Bethpage. I don't even know. Pebble Beach is kind of on the shorter end of things, but let's get into that a little bit. Maybe like some USGA opens that have actually held their ground better than some of the longer courses out there. And I think, being Pennsylvania boys, let's start with Marion. Let's talk a little bit about Marion and how well that short course held up.
It's a link style, right? So not many trees out there, a lot more bunkers. There's some fescue, and the green complexes are as challenging as you'll find anywhere. And typically from the events that we've seen played there, you'd see the green complexes also being firm for the week. Rarely for a US Open type venue are you seeing soft greens. That's kind of the exact opposite of what they want. And regardless of the length of the course that you're going to see in a US Open or a major type setting, I can almost guarantee you at every one of them, the greens will be firm, the rough will be long, the bunkers are going to be in positions where they will get you, and there's a premium placed on hitting fairways. Because let's face it, scoring's not going to get done from the rough. And even in my experience playing in, you know, the US Open sectional 3 times, I've come to understand that when you get to that venue, they set it up like the US Open. And it doesn't matter how far you hit it off the tee. Billy Hurley hits it 270. At the time I played with him, I was flying at 320. He beat me by 6 strokes because he just flat out knew how to get the ball around the course. He's hitting the right spots in the fairways. He's hitting it close with his wedges. He's scoring from that 150 and in number almost every time. There's an art to it. It's not about the distance. It's not about how long the course is. It's about how well you use the skill set that you have.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to who won that Marion Open, that USGA Open at Marion, +1, Justin Rose.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm looking back at some of the longer courses kind of directly around that year. Chambers Bay, 5 under won it. Oakmont, kind of a mid-range course, so not, you know, your typical really long tipped out course, but 4 under won it there. The next year, Erin Hills, they tried to tip that place out at like, I think 73, 50, 74, 16 under. Brooks Koepka won that event. So, I mean, it almost seems like the longer they're making these courses, the more freer these bombers are with their drivers, and the more they're actually getting, you know, I don't know if it's abused, but these courses are getting taken advantage of from a bomber standpoint. So I think the tighter, shorter you make a competition course, the more you take driver out of these guys' hands, and the more you make them say, all right, well, I could really be in some trouble if I'm not hitting driver, or like Isaiah, like you said, with your experience in course in Pennsylvania at Waynesboro, if the properly placed hazards are in the right spots, you penalize these guys for hitting drivers in the wrong places. And I think another place that's going to be really interesting to see how they set it up this year is winged foot. Traditionally, they tip that place out and make the rough extremely long. So I'm almost curious as to see, all right, well, will you have it like a typical US Open, or will your distance, findings in the early 2020 change the way they set up that course this year?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see. I mean, we even on an amateur side, Dalton, we discussed it when we were down in Florida playing those first two courses, Winter Park and even Dubs Dread. They were shorter courses, and there was times where you really had to think, if you wanted to play well, what shot or what club and what shot do we want to hit? And sometimes it penalized if you went to go long, and some it penalized if you decided to play it, I guess you can say, on the safer side of things. And it, I account on 2 times where one, Dalton pulled driver and bombed it and went in the water. I decided to pull a shorter club and laid up, and I also hurt myself too. So it just go. I think when you, like you're saying, Dalton, if you take the courses that are longer, you're actually taking the thought process out of the game.
Yeah, I think when you can set up there and tell a guy who hits it or flies at 295, swing as hard as you can. If you get it out past everything, who cares where you miss it? You can play it. That's not a good spot to be in as a golf course and as an event that you're trying to challenge the best golfers in the world. So I think, end all be all, I don't think we have a distance problem. I think we have a course setup problem. And I'd like to see, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but I'd like to see movements being made to, make courses tougher. It's a shame, but it seems like for every one course that's opening, 11's like closing, because they just overbuilt in the early 2000s. But I'd like to see, if any courses are redesigning or, renovating, I'd like to see more thought being put into where bunkers are, where hazards are, how tight fairways are. I think mowing these insanely wide open fairways that just run for ages are kind of putting less of a premium on driving the ball accurately, rather than, guys can just bomb it and not be too worried about accuracy. So, I think there's a lot from the agronomy side of things that, course design, course keep up, and then stuff like that can be improved. And I think is where the USGA should really focus some of their efforts, rather than telling the 96.2% that we're going to roll it back and you're going to have to deal with it.
The layouts are they're just outdated is what it comes down to. I mean, I would say 99% of the courses that you would see in the regular rotation have their bunker setups somewhere in the neighborhood of 270 as a max. And that's right around the distance that the guys back on the PGA Tour in the early 2000s, that's roughly how far they were flying the ball. Right in that 270 range. Today, they can fly at 290 or 300. And for those players that can do that, it's bomb and gouge. So really, I think all they've got to do with a lot of courses to bring them back into the rotation is just start adding bunkers in that 270 to 315 range, and make sure that they're in positions where if a player is going to get up there and bomb it, they have to swing out of their shoes. And we know most guys on tour don't swing out of their shoes because they don't control it as well.
Yep.
So force players to think.
And it's funny too, because it's not a money problem when it comes to these PGA Tour courses. If they want to put in more bunkering or more hazards, they can at the flick of a wrist, it seems like. So, I mean, it takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of maybe convincing some members that are maybe a little sacred or tied into their course layout or whatever. And I think, speaking of sacred course layouts, you're even starting to see the Masters kind of debate how their looking at their course layout, there's been rumors and some ground construction being made that, Amen Corner, the tee box on 13 is being lengthened way back in the trees to make that, that dry. Well, right now, hell, it's longer than 11, I think. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the par 5 is longer than 11. So, or I mean, shorter than 11. 11, the par 4 is longer than the par 3 13th. So, it's just crazy to see even some of the most sacred grounds being having to move. But I think it's necessary. We don't play the same game that football plays, where you have constraints and you're on a 100-yard field, or soccer with their field constraints. We don't play the same game. It's not in the same realm. We play a game where you traverse over, God's land, and there's different obstacles along the way. So I think we play a game that is more malleable when it comes to course design. And I think, it would be interesting. I think people were just really steadfast on some of their sacred course designs and not willing to change. And I think it just goes back to a little bit of old man golf holding on to, decades past.
It's time to let go. It's time to adapt and just, face reality. Things are changing. There's a lot of issues out there, not just in the golf world, just in society in general, that a lot of people just do not want to accept change.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. It's going to happen. Technology is advancing day by day, just let alone, I mean, I'll turn around. There's a new update and there's something new I got to do with technology. I mean, within hours. Yeah. So, the golf's changing, and I think we need to change the infrastructure of the courses.
Yeah, I think.
And golf commentary too.
Oh, yeah.
What's the famous saying? Adapt or get left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's truer words couldn't be said when looking at the way the USGA and the R&A have approached this quote unquote problem. They're putting themselves in a very tough place with a game that doesn't want to adapt the way they see the USGA and the R&A moving. And, whether it's guys on tour or the 96%, like, most of us amateur golfers, we're playing music in our, on our bags now. The top 10 blogs are all about what best speaker to put on your carry bag when you're walking around. The Pinehurst is adding the Cradle, where they play music from speakers like in the rocks, 24/7. And golf is becoming so much more of a social. You're seeing Top Golf, where there's drinks, bar food, etc., live music, whatever, concerts. Exactly. Golf is moving in such a cool, dare I say hip, because I hate that word, but hip, like move, hip fashion. And golf is becoming cool, and golf is getting to a point in time where we almost need to say, listen, the rules of golf need to adapt to the way it's being played and the way people want to play it. Now, I'm not saying, all right, let's just make the rules, whatever we want to be, because we think it's cool if you can use your foot wedge behind a tree. Like, that's not what I'm saying. There's still integrity to be had in the game, and the game can always find itself back to its roots. But come on, let's start having some fun and making golf cool for the masses.
It's more the fact that the game's coming back to, and correct me when I'm wrong, from my understanding of golf and when it was invented, it was, and even from other podcasts that I've listened to, when they go over the pond, it's mainly played by a lot of blue collar workers. Comes to the States, it becomes this ritzy upper class, social experience. I'm this member at this so and so club. Now it's coming back like, oh, I'm joining this club because the group of guys are all like me and we have a great time. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's moving into, and that's how it's growing.
And I'm even seeing it on my side of things from a lot of public courses around here that you don't have to be a member at. They fill up tee time Saturday morning quicker than some of the private clubs. So, I mean, golf is becoming a sport, and I think the direction it needs to go this way. It needs to be the public accessible kind of sport. It needs to be as accessible as going to your local soccer field and picking up a game of soccer, or going to your local basketball court at the Y and picking up a pickup game of, 5-on-5. Dante, when we played down at Winter Park with Matt Janella, I thought it was the truest form of the way golf needs to be built or can be built within the future. We played in a Tensum, picked up after birdie. It was so chill, relaxed, laid back. We were shooting the shit with everybody. And that's the way golf can be moving. But, everyone's talking about, oh man, bet you can't get it there, and some of the long drives were hitting. And it's like, you start taking the fun out of the game by regulating, the overarching rules like the USGA and the RNA want to. You start messing with some of this dichotomy of golf being a social aspect, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a lot of fun, especially when going back to, the skins game. What's cool about it is we were meeting people from all over the place. I know we said this before, but at the same time, we were playing a game. We were actually still competing. I wanted to win some money. I wanted to go home and get this trip paid for plus some. But at the same time, it was a blast. We were having fun. We were shooting this shit. People were just, BSing the entire time and just having fun, hearing stories, and that's what it's about. I mean, you can still go have fun, have a couple drinks, but at the same time, you can play a regulated, game, and still govern yourself over certain rule aspects. I mean, that's isn't that what it's intended for?
And I mean, that's the self-governing golfer or the self-governing game is, I think, what so many people love about it. And it begs the question, which I've been waiting to ask this entire conversation. Do we even need the USGA? Do we need the RNA?
No. They can pound sand.
I don't think
Get out of here.
I really don't think we do. I think, and here's where I'd like to see
Logan's thinking over there.
Logan's thinking because he's chasing down the professional the professional game, and I get where he's coming from with a little hesitation. And I don't want to put him on the spot if he doesn't have to, but I'll put myself on the spot. I don't think we need it because I think there's enough masses, 96.2%, of people that play the game out there that can go out and govern themselves. And if the USGA wasn't there tomorrow, put tournaments together that people would actually enjoy way more than USGA local qualifiers and US Opens. I mean, would it be the spectacle and the historical, resemblance of a US Open? Probably not for the next 25 years until it built its own history. There's obviously something to be said about the USGA being around as long as it has and building the history with the Jack Nicklauses and the Arnold Palmers and the Tiger Woodses winning their championship. It's a coveted championship. I'm not taking that away from them. But all I'm saying is if they weren't there to govern the rules of golf, we would find a way to associate ourselves with a game full of integrity and a game full of class in its own.
I agree with that. The reason I was thinking is because I've played several mini tour events, particularly the G Pro Tour, which is a fantastic development professional tour run by Gary Hall. Him and his family and a couple of interns, they do a fantastic job of running that tour. And of course, all play is governed by USGA rules, but the USGA is not present at any of those events. And I think that's what we see with amateur golf and, certain aspects of professional golf. I think the USGA as a governing body is detached from the rules that they're making. They want to create rules and have the authority to create them and maintain their status, but they may not necessarily be in it for the best interest of the people that play the game.
Yeah, I think it's almost evident too. I've seen it sometimes, not really with myself, but with other playing partners. When you get into local qualifying events and you start to see these USGA officials come into town for these qualifiers, and especially at the sectional level, they make rulings, and one person that's affiliated with the USGA can't seem to make a ruling. They got to call 5 other people in, and then it's a 10-minute conversation because no one really knows the true aspect of the rules. And it's like, it begs the question how much their own employees even know the rules at some points. And you know, do you really know the implications of making these rule changes and how they're truly going to affect someone's round of golf or tournament play?
Right. I feel like there's the most beautiful aspect of the game, to me at least, is the fact that golf is a game of integrity and it's a game of honesty. And the people that play it are typically those that have what you would describe as good character, or at least, you know, a certain degree of morality or integrity. And a lot of guys that I know that play for a living know more about the rules than even, say, the rules officials themselves. And we've seen arguments happen back and forth between players that have disagreed with the USGA, and the USGA has been wrong and have had to apologize to players and say, I'm sorry, you were right, you actually knew. So whether or not we have the USGA, the players are going to govern the game by themselves. We're going to call each other out, we're going to hold each other accountable, but at the same time, when do the rules of golf take the game aspect out of the game of golf?
You're saying which particular rules in general?
No, I'm just saying, as a society, or with these rule changes, are we forgetting that golf is a game that's meant to be played and enjoyed? Or are we going to go play rules and make it less fun for people to play the game? The game is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it.
So you're saying just throw out the rules and just go out and have just a good time on a
I mean,
golf
you
course?
can do that on the weekend.
I mean,
for sure.
a lot of people do that already.
Yeah.
I mean, even on like public scorecards, it says governed by the USGA. You know,
Local
rules
implied.
and govern
Yeah.
local rules and pride. And that's what it even goes back to that too. And kind of, I don't know if I'm switching subjects or whatnot, but it almost seems that the USGA is trying to find a way to control the professional game, but yet they're affecting 100% of golfers. But the average weekend golfer does not want to play a different game and different rule set than what the pros are playing.
That's the allure of the game and why it makes these professionals hitting the ball so dang far and so controlled sells tickets, is because we can literally go out. It's what golf, like there's people can't go out there and get behind a huddle and take a handoff from, you know, Tom Brady or catch a pass from Aaron Rodgers, but they can go out there and tee up a ball and play it just like the pros can. Not on the same courses, granted, but they can play the same game governed by the same rules. So that's the specialty that golf has over a lot of different sports. And that's where that 96.2% comes in, is they legitimately feel like they're playing the same game as the pros because they are.
Yeah, and that's probably the biggest issue, is where if say you do something so crazy or whatever they want to do with this rule change, this ball change, or some type of distance control, it's going, you and I and the weekend warriors are going to want to play exactly how the pros are playing, because that's how it's always been.
Yep.
So in my point, that's in my point as well, that's what hurts the most.
I agree. I'm 100% in accordance with you there. It's just when the USGA makes these, like, I feel like absurd kind of statements, they don't really realize their implications. God, I struggle with that word tonight. Their implications when they make statements like this, because they just don't truly see the full aspect of what they're adjusting or what they're, you know, governing. They don't see the full aspect. They're not out there at every local course seeing, you know, the boys, you know, play 36 holes in one day, or they're not seeing your buddy's golf trip. They're only seeing that 1%. So they believe that's all they're affecting. And I feel like they're out of touch. And it goes back to, I think it just goes back perfectly the way Phil Mickelson put it. There needs to be player input. There needs to be players on this committee, past and present, that see the game from inside the ropes and are making, decisions that not only affect themselves, but understand that they came up from an amateur golf to the professional ranks and can understand the implications of how these rules truly affect the game. So, guys, I think we've fully went in on the USGA this evening, and I'm really happy about it. I really am. I think I seriously think this statement was just an absolute absurd publication, a media grab to get attention back on the USGA and get everybody talking for 2020. I think just from a perspective of absolute disconnection between the game and the governing bodies, I don't think they understand at all what truly sells tickets and what makes this game cool and attractive in 2020 and beyond. I think they're completely out of touch, and I'd like to see things change, whether it's, on their side of things, on the media coverage side of things. I'm happy. The only part I'm happy about is seeing the PGA completely not complying at all with what their statements say, and basically saying that, hey, we love the long ball. In the Professional Golfers Association, it's here to stay. So that's the only thing I like about this entire conversation from the USGA, is that the PGA is having none of it.
And the PGA should take over. Professional Golf Association ought to step in and become the official governing body of the PGA. They can create their own rules, keep what they like, toss out what they don't, and USGA can get on board or get it off the boat.
Power move right there.
Yeah, I would love.
Yeah,
how
are they not governing their
a PGA
how are they not
rule
governing
book?
their own?
Yeah, I agree.
How are they not governing their own organization?
I mean, I'd hate to put the PGA on the spot 3 weeks after we just got credentialed media passes to the PGA show, but hey, PGA, we're putting you on the spot. That sounds like an awesome idea. Create your own dang rule book. Take over the USGA. We think you're a lot more in touch with the game than the USGA and the R&A, and we'd love to see you guys take over. So, speaking of the PGA, guys, it's AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am Week. What do you guys think about the Pro-Am week and some fun that always goes on during that week over at Pebble Beach?
I'd like to play.
Yeah, I would too. Shoot, that'd be a fun event.
That'd be sick.
So what they play?
I just like to play the course. Come on.
They play Pebble Beach and Spyglass Hills over the 4-day period. Correct? I think they play 2 rounds at each. So. Now, you guys may hate me, but I'm getting back at y'all for your little Hawaii, shenanigans that took on early in the year. But I had the fortunate privilege of playing out there after my senior year of college. My parents took me out there for a graduation gift, and my dad and I got to walk Spyglass and Pebble Beach. When I say that it was a beautiful time out there, it was unbelievable.
I'm eating Dole Whip right now.
You know what? I don't want to talk about your Dole Whip.
Actually, speaking of that, did you see that they're releasing it where you can actually buy it in supermarkets?
I did. I'm not believing the hype. It's all hype.
Yeah.
It can't be as good as what y'all had out there in actual Hawaii, right?
Wow.
Apparently, it's supposed to taste exactly like it.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But anyway,
back
to Pebble Beach.
Back to the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Something that I think would be a pretty, lighthearted way to finish this all off. You see some really fun celebrities out there year in and year out, and it always begs the question, what would your dream celebrity partner be in the Pebble Beach Pro-Am? And then what would your dream foursome be to go walk 18 at Pebble Beach? So let's do the dream celebrity partner first. Are you guys going to go with someone who you just would love to see and muck it up with? Or would you go with some celebrity that maybe has a little talent that might actually get you that $1.4 million?
I'd go with Bill Murray. He's always been a character. He's done great in movies. I mean, Caddyshack.
Yeah, if y'all haven't seen Caddyshack, turn us off right now. I won't take offense. Go watch it right now.
So I go with Bill Murray for that. I'd really love and granted he's not alive anymore, but I would have loved to have played out there with a guy like Arnold Palmer. But since he's, not out there now, I'd like to go play with a guy like John Rahm or Justin Thomas.
I like that. Good pick. I
Rookies.
think I'd go on a safer route. If I'm judging year 1 or 2, I would go with JT. I think he'd be a little more fun. I'd be afraid Rom might push me into the water if he gets a little heated and I don't hit a good shot. I'd be afraid,
Sergio.
yeah, he'd lose his top on me a little bit. But I like JT. JT's a good pick. I think Bill Murray would have you cracking up so much you wouldn't be able to swing.
So I pulled up who's playing this week with the pros. Some notable guys just here: Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, Jake Owen, Kelly Slater. Who else on here? Larry Fitzgerald, Peyton Manning, Wayne Gretzky, Aaron Rodgers, Chris Harrison. He's a big golfer, that Bachelorette dude. Eli Manning's playing. Larry the Cable Guy, Steve Young, Macklemore. What?
Whoa,
he's a golfer,
right?
No
I know.
way.
I mean, your classic guys like JT, Justin Timberlake. The other JT in the pop world. Always shows up and puts on a good show. He's actually a pretty dang good golfer. We razzed him a little bit. I think Aaron Rodgers is out there playing this week, right?
Yep.
So there's some pretty good talent out there. Dante, who would be your pick, man? A celebrity partner out there for the Pro-Am?
So to be honest, I'd probably go after just talking about it. Well, one, after talking about Hawaii, Kelly Slater would be probably sick to play with. But my original thing was Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to play with him, possibly win, and I'd like to see him move the ball around the course. See him on TV a little bit, but I think that would be pretty sick to be paired up with.
Yeah, he's had some serious success at the amateur and professional level, playing in a couple of exemptions out in the Korn Ferry Tour and trying to make the the cut and stuff like that. He's been pretty close to the cut line. I don't remember him ever making a cut, but to hold your own out there and shoot around even par with those guys out on tours, it's pretty substantial for a washed up NFL quarterback. Now you rattled off some really good names, and now I'm really having a tough time picking my celebrity. Logue took my number 1 with Bill Murray. I just think he would absolutely be a hoot out there. But I'm looking at other names, man. You got Peyton Manning, you got the great one, Wayne Gretzky, you got Ray Romano from Everybody Loves Raymond. He's a classic. Deborah. So I mean,
yeah. What a classic show there.
Goodness. I mean, and then you got other greats like Condoleezza Rice, who's just an absolute powerhouse on the political spectrum. I'm seeing names like, good Lord, I mean, just it's packed.
Justin Verlander.
Yeah. I wonder if he's bringing Kate Upton. Maybe, that might have to be that's a sneaky pick right there. I'd be partners with him just to walk around with his beautiful and endearing wife. I'm sure she is. But now I think if I had to go with one, and I don't think I see him in this field this year, which surprises me actually, but I'd really have to go with Steph Curry. I think he's not in this event, but he's
injured.
Is he injured?
Yeah, I think he's injured. That's why
I know he plays a lot in some Korn Ferry
lately.
events too.
Yeah,
and has made some noise. So I think just from the amount of work he does with charity and the just overall amazing individual he seems to be. He's a religious man. He preaches that all the time, and I think just a walk around Pebble Beach with Steph Curry, whether we talk about golf, whether we talk about basketball, or hell, even if we talk about his sneakers or whatever the hell we talk about, or his kids or his beautiful daughters, whatever, I think that would be an amazing walk around Pebble Beach would be with Steph Curry.
What pro would you go with?
What pro? Oh
Yeah.
man, John Daly all day long. We'd sip John Daly's and enjoy the beach view all day long out there in some loudmouth pants. No doubt about it. And I'd have him. I'd have cart access because obviously he's a little banged up and he'd have a cart, so we'd have the cool in the back. Obviously, I'd be enjoying the walk out there, but
way to rep the brand out there for sure on that one.
Good save.
But yeah,
yo, when he played in the PGA and they gave him access to the cart, I literally thought he was gonna have like a full-fledged cart with the cover on it and all. Like
so
any other course would give you.
It was cold out there that week. I was there that week for the practice rounds, and it was hilarious watching that man ride around the cart all week. And it was like it was like kind of cart path only. They made him like go with. It was like modified cart path only. It was like inside the ropes, but like not on the fairway kind of deal. It was funny to watch.
Yo, I'd play with Harold Varner III.
Jumpman, representative of Jumpman.
Man, he's my height. Love it.
One for the short guys.
Yeah, always.
All right, guys.
Events with that dude.
I was gonna say, I was gonna get on the topic of that real quick. Isaiah, you've mucked it up around Harold Varner a little bit in the past.
Mm-hmm. Amateur. Actually, we both have the AM Pub Links down in Maryland. Was it Clustered Spires?
Yeah, he took that home, I believe.
Yeah, several times.
Yeah,
sort of the preferred location for him there. But
I think so. But
seen him at quite a few spots.
Always a class act with him too, and just an absolute grinder, like you said, Dante. He's what 5'8", 5'7", 5'8", 5 somewhere around there.
I'm just gonna go maybe a little bit shorter.
I was giving you some credit. Take it run. But, you know, he's that height, and he holds his own out there on tour. So it's fun to watch him always grind it out. But
for sure,
let's wrap it up here, guys, with our picks for this week for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am and kind of moving us out into some fun interviews again next week. Who you got, guys?
I'm gonna go with who you got.
Who do I got?
Yeah.
Well, so here's some fun stat for you.
Okay.
Phil Mickelson backdoored a top 5 in Dubai last week.
Whoa. Slid that under the radar.
Slid it
little sneaky top 5 action.
A little backdoor sneaky new.
That new Arab sponsor or whatever it is that he got over there.
I don't know what it's working. I don't know if they found the fountain of youth in him over there last week, but you know, I would go as far as to say he's going to have another good week this week because he won it last year. I'd like to. I think Phil goes back to back. I don't think he's done yet, guys. I don't think he's done yet at all.
Really? No, I think he's just getting started after.
Yeah, Tiger in the field this week.
No. You'll see him next.
He's playing at Riviera.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, well, my last pick was Jordan Spieth, and clearly that went well. He played so good.
Yeah,
at waste management.
I felt bad for you.
Gosh. You know, I might say, is Webb Simpson in the field this week?
You might be 0 for 2. He might be
0 for 2.
Actually, no, I don't think he's there either.
Hadn't hit it well. Zonder?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go with him.
I think the Sandman's going to be there.
Yeah, he played well or decently well at waste management, so I think I'll go with him. I was surprised to see Bubba sneak up the leaderboard because he hasn't been on top of a leaderboard in a minute.
No, he hasn't. He's so streaky. Bubba has these runs where he just like doesn't hit a top 50, and then all of a sudden top 10, top 10, top 10, top 5 in a major, top 5 in a major, and then he
wins
like
something in Asia
for another like 4 months. Bubba's sneaky streaky like that.
I'm gonna go with the guy who's pretty solid on the West Coast, Brandt Snedeker.
Sneds.
I haven't heard that name in a minute.
No, I have not. Whew.
Jeez.
All right, boys. I like it. I like it a lot. So stay tuned. We'll see who gets out there and you know, shows those USGA fools who's the non-distance detrimental guy this week. I hope another short guy wins this week. I'm pulling for every short guy that's in the top 5 for the rest of the year, just to show
Height or distance?
Yeah, both.
Yes.
Absolutely. I know people love when we say that. But
right.
Yeah, no, the shorter distance guys, just let's see it happen the rest of the year. I want to see nothing but like 275, 280 average guys just pulling wins out of wherever they're coming from this year. So anyway, that's it for us, guys. I hope you enjoyed our talk this week, about the detrimental problem that the USGA thinks the game of golf has and how they are just absolutely 100% completely out of their minds, completely wrong. So hope you enjoyed that talk, guys. Please interact with us. Tell us if you think we're off our rocker. Tell us if you think we're wrong. Tell us if you think we're right. Tweet us at _enjoythewalk, or interact with our posts that we're going to be putting out on Instagram at _enjoythewalk there as well. Feel free to message us. Feel free to DM us. Feel free to do whatever you feel like feel free to interact with us on iTunes as well. Find our podcast, rate, review, and subscribe, please and thank you. It means a lot. And yeah, guys, that'll pretty much wrap us up. Oh, and go check us out online, www.enjoythewalk.store. Shout out to Saltwater Swag, getting us all of our merch. Go check them out as well at Saltwater Swag on Instagram. Yeah, guys, that wraps us up. Thanks again for joining us. And as always, enjoy the walk.
Enjoy the walk.
Enjoy the walk.
That's the stuff. One shot at a time.